Thanks a lot, Les Concordia. Thanks, Minister. I would ask the Minister if he will engage with PhD researchers' unions to ensure that all PhD students receive a living wage income and that they're treated as workers. The truth is that they are paid very, very substantially below the minimum wage. The highest available PhD stipends are €18,500 over a 40-hour week, and obviously many do, probably most do significantly more than that. That works out at less than €9 an hour.
Murphy, for the question. The Deputy is aware of the short-term benefits we've introduced in the budget, so I won't waste time with that in terms of once-off payments or an increase to the stipend baseline. We need to do more. I accept we need to do more. We need to retain talent in Ireland. We need to attract talent to Ireland. And I have engaged with many PhD students, postgraduate students, and indeed I met a group as recently as yesterday, students with disabilities led by Dr. Vivian Rath, researchers with disabilities led by Dr. Vivian Rath. The key thing we need to do here is we need to have a proper evidence-based review of, yes, the stipend, yes, the income supports, but also how they are classified, students versus employees. I do agree that that question needs to be settled. Had an interesting kind of debate and discussion with a group of PhD researchers on this, where they were referencing countries of good practice for PhD researchers, some of whom are treated as students, some of whom are classified as employees. So we'd be interested to see the evidence on that and how that pans out. I have decided that the review will be external. I've appointed 2 external co-chairs, Dr. Andrea Johnson and David Cagney, and the scope of the review, as I say, is quite broad. It'll look at current PhD researcher supports, including financial support, stipends, SUSI supports and others. It'll look at the adequacy, consistency and equity of current arrangements across research funders and higher education institutions, including equity and welfare considerations. It will look at the status of PhD researchers, student or employee, including a review of international comparators and models. It'll look at graduate outcomes. It'll look at visa requirements and duration for non-EU students, which I'm coming across as a real issue for many students and researchers and their families. So the review will be informed by a robust evidence base. It will be completed in 2023. The first job of the review will be to engage directly with PhD researchers, and I will make sure, as a result of the Deputy's question, that the unions and alliances he's referenced do hear from the co-chairs.
Treating PhD students as workers is a central issue, because then what flows from that, you recognise them as employees, well then they have to be paid at least the minimum wage, because I think they are workers both in the work that they do in terms of research, but also in very, very many cases currently unpaid work, delivering tutorials, demonstrations, correcting assignments, exams, even lecturing. And in very many cases, a condition for getting the PhD scholarship covering their fees is that they have to do this teaching. And the truth is that universities have become increasingly reliant on this unpaid and low-paid labour over the past decades, and PhDs have been particularly badly hit. So that's why a key demand of the Postgraduate Workers Alliance and the PhDs Collective Action Union is for worker status for PhDs. It would address the major issues with pay, it would change the immigration status for many non-EU PhDs, giving them greater right to travel. It would also allow them to engage in collective bargaining.
So the status issue that the Deputy has outlined will be considered. It is an explicit term of the terms of reference. But I would also flag to the Deputy, as I flagged earlier, we will actually have in this House an opportunity in 2023 to pass a research bill. The Government has committed to bringing forward a standalone national research bill in 2023. This will be the bill to give effect to many of the provisions of Impact 2030, including the creation of one new agency for funding research in Ireland. Will also perhaps give an opportunity to look at scientific advisory structures, and therefore it'll give an opportunity perhaps to deal with any of the recommendations that flow from the review as well. So I would encourage the organisations, the groups that you're referencing, to engage, as I know they will, with the reviewers. It will be open to public consultation, but there'll also be specific stakeholder engagement. I'll make sure the Deputy is aware of how that's going to work in terms of the process, and we'll be led by the evidence that review produces.
Ireland compares badly to our EU peers in terms of how PhD workers are treated. So I listed earlier the kind of stipends, that was the high end. Obviously you have many on less than that, but the EU average for PhD pay is €32,100. Pay in Nordic countries starts at about €50,000 and progresses to €55,000 on a fixed term 4-year contract. Separate from the issue of treatment as workers and the issues of pay that relate to it are a series of other issues that the PhD workers' unions are raising, ending discrimination against non-EU PhD researchers, clear information about welfare and housing support entitlements for PhD researchers, allocation of affordable HEI-owned student accommodation for postgraduates proportional to the HEI's postgraduate population, an end to precarity in higher education and research, and improved access and support for all who wish to pursue postgraduate research and teaching positions, including a dramatic increase in funding for disability services.
Look, I think Deputy Murphy outlined a whole range of issues. I think he outlined a whole range of issues which clearly merits the need for a national review. I don't think it's as easy as the stipend, though I do accept there's need to do more on the stipend. I think the breadth of the issues is quite significant. We have to get this right. I accept more needs to be done. We need a robust evidence base as to how to proceed, and I very much welcome the engagement of this House on the review.